Well, hello everyone and welcome back to the cabin. I'll tell you, it's another wonderful day out today. Short sleeve weather, even though it's overcast. I'm not complaining, the weather's beautiful. You know, we've got the siding put up on the inside of the workshop. And it's time to put some trim up. So I'm going to have to mill up some material to make that trim with. But before I take the bucket, I had that on the tractor. Before I take it off and put the grapple on there, this gravel that we've got on the driveway, every so often it will create kind of like these little cups or these potholes in the driveway. And what I need to do is take that small blade that I've got on the tractor and drag this driveway before I actually take it off. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm sure that you can see those little cups or those little divots in the driveway, especially if we get kind of like right there that you can look up and that you can see them. Got some on this side of the driveway too. What happens when you got a pickup truck, you know, it's kind of lightweight in the rear end and you're coming up the driveway, sometimes it will spin a little bit and then you lighten up on it a little bit and you're coming up the hill and, you know, so it'll start getting traction and it'll spin a little bit more. That's how that happens. Anyway, I'm going to take the blade on this tractor, we're going to drag that down nice and neat, and then we'll put the grapple on there, we'll run down and get us a log, we'll start making some trim to go on the inside of the workshop. Well, it's not that easy to see in here because I need to bring my battery back down here to plug the lights in. But in the last video, I got the ceiling put up right here, and I was thinking that dark trim would really look good in here. So what I need to do is measure and see how many lineal feet that I need. And that just means the total footage on each wall, which comes to be about 300 lineal feet. So I think what we're going to do is just take this log and cut it all up into 1x4s. And I think that we'll have enough. And I think I'm going to go ahead and burn them, and we will put the oil on them so to make it look like all of the trim on everything else that we've done around here, and I think it's really going to look good. Let's see, looks like we need to come up about 2 inches. Looks good. Well, we'll let these dry. It's easier to stain these and burn them like this than it is to do a bunch of little ones. So what I'll do is I will burn these, oil them, and then I will cut them up and do the edges before I put them in. Alright friends, we're going to leave those, let them dry overnight and kind of see where they're at tomorrow. I figured if I cut them 2 1/4 inches, that will give me 4 for each board, and I've got 9 of them. That's what we'll work on tomorrow. Well, good morning. Let's run down here and check out these boards and see how they dried out overnight. You know, you would be surprised at a lot of the logs after they lay for a year. Some of them are still really damp on the inside, but then some of them are really dry. So it just kind of depends on the log that you're cutting. Anyway, let's go down here and let's check this out. Check this out and see what it's like. Oh, they dried pretty good. Even the ones underneath. But I think what I'm going to do is let them dry one more day. I got a couple of other projects that I can work on while it's nice short sleeve weather today. So let me show you those. So right here in the corner, we need to drive us a ground rod because we're going to have a ditch coming through here. It's going to provide power that will come up to the wall and connect to this piece of conduit that we've got right here and go inside. And if you're new to this channel, this is the box that I'm speaking of right here. And this is the rope, or the mule tape, that's hanging right here. We'll run this through the conduit, which is going to have to be run up to our juice shack up there if you're new to this channel. So I'm going to have to dig a ditch across the driveway right here. And I'll probably turn and go up right here, because the other comes down and it goes right here. Right here is the small little swell underneath where our other conduit is under the driveway. So like I said, we've got to run down there with a conduit. So on nice days, I think that I'll work on this. And the other thing that I wanted to accomplish this fall was to get a fence like I've got right there, get it right here in front of the cabin, and it's going to run down to this point right here where I've got a little stake in the ground. You see that right there? So what that does is that gives me an 8-foot path that I can take the tractor and go down and up in the hollow if I want to, and have access over to the storm shelter that we're going to build over here. Then I'll probably have maybe 4 or 5 posts going down this area right here. That will use up some of the posts that I have saved before they rot, and then it will also take up some of the slab wood that I cut, because all I have to do is trim off both sides, and I just, you know, scrape the bark off of it and use that. You know, when it rots, I'll take it off and replace it with another one. But that kind of gets rid of some of the extra scrap wood that we've got too, and it actually makes the place look better and kind of gives it some boundaries. So I think what I will do is I'll start on this ditch today, since it's more important. So I don't have anything to drive the ground rod with yet, but I do have a mattock, because this is going to be done by hand, except across the driveway. I may use the tractor for that, but we'll have to dig it by hand going up the bank. Well, my neighbor's got some sort of machine going over there, and I don't know what it is, but it's awful loud. All right, let's see. What we need is this right here. Well, I'm about halfway there, so I'm going to have to go up between that end pipe and that next one right there, because I've already got a spot cut out in the plywood on the inside, but I don't think it'll be a problem. Well, I'm getting closer. I'm about 3 feet away from it now. I got to kind of take it easy, because right there is a ground rod. So we don't want to dig through the ground wire.
we're up there now where we can actually probably turn and go up in there and get this just a little deeper. Well, I think I can get up in there now, so I'm just going to scratch this loose stuff out. I'm about a foot. All right, friends, we got us a ditch about a foot deep going up the side of the hill right there. And I believe that I can get between, I've got 2 ground wires up here. You can see one here and one here. I've got enough room I can go up between those. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole right here, okay? I think I've got a screw there. I'm going to take that screw out and we'll drill us a hole right there. That way, because of this piece right here that I cut out, we'll have all 4 of those come up in the same spot. Then all I have to do is just tack my wire up here, because we're going to go in right here and connect to one of these breakers, which will be 30 amp service. So I got to get a 30 amp breaker to go in there to feed the shop down here, and we can go ahead and get some conduit that's put in here. I could go ahead and connect a short piece right here and at least lay one section. So what we'll do is once we get this pipe laid out here and get the string blowed in there, I'm going to start down there on that end and I'll start feeding it together, and we'll get the wire fed in where we can actually pull it through. We're going to feed it from that end, we'll pull it through up here, but that way we get all of the big bends out of the way and we just have this short one to deal with as we're pulling the wire on the long portion of the run. Right here is a ground rod that I think that I bought for the cabin and didn't use it, had it put up and had forgot all about it. But what I need to do is rent that machine. I think it's 35 bucks for a half a day to drive it in. And I could do like we did back in the day, wet the ground with water and try to, beat that thing in the ground like driving a nail into a board. But not for only 35 bucks. If I can rent that, it'd be well worth driving that in there. Then all I need to do is get that conduit across the driveway, and then I'll be able to go back and forth because we don't want to hold the driveway up. But yeah, getting this in there is going to help me out a whole lot. So once I get receptacles put on the other end down here and get this end tied in up here, we'll actually have power down here at the workshop, and that will be really nice. Alright, let's see if we can get that down in there. Hey, how about that? Well, I've got 2 here that I think are probably around 20 degrees. I'm not really sure, but I think one of them is not enough. And then the next one, if I turn it just a little bit, like so, I believe that'll work good. We will do all of these first, so we don't have to do that later. I think I know which 2 to line up. I got 2 lines that I can line up. Get this put in here and line it up. Well, now let's see if we can get our first joint put on here. That would be nice. I don't know if I can get any of that. That hole's big enough to stuff any of that down in there. So that's a 2-inch outside diameter pipe. All I did was wallow it out a little bit. Yep. Maybe I can get some in the front right here. Well, I did get a little bit in the front right here. So that's good. I think we'll get the caulk and put it around the rest of it. Alright, now we can afford to put a little dirt back in this hole right up here at the joint. Hold this. in place. And we'll just let that sit there till we get the rest of it in the ground buried down there. Well, friends, I went ahead and put a strap across here. Not that it needed it, but I had the strapping material and I thought, you know, I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So now none of these can move. Now the thing about the winter months right there where the sun is at right now, it's right about 3 o'clock. So at about 3:30, the sun's going to be right even with the top of that ridge right there. So that's when it starts getting dark here because that ridge is so tall. Now if I go out to the end of my driveway, I've still got like another hour and 15 minutes worth of daylight. But it will start getting dark up here because of that high ridge in the winter months. Let's go down here and check these boards out. Oh yeah, they really dried up quite a bit more with that sun on them. So tomorrow looks like I can go ahead and lightly burn those. I'm not going to burn them dark. And we can oil those up and then I can get them cut and ready to go in. And I think that's really going to look sharp. Well, good morning everyone. I'll tell you, we had a pretty good rain last night for about an hour and a half. So let's run out here and check and see if we lost any of this dirt in the ditch and check on these boards. But it doesn't look like we lost any dirt right there, and actually it looks really good. I covered up some more of that last night, so I got about half of that pipe covered up, but yeah, that's done settled in there. Looks really good. Well, I had to take that long sleeve shirt off because it was a little bit warmer out here than what I thought it was. And I'll tell you what, these really dried up good on the surfaces all the way around, so it's going to take that oil really well. It's easier to put the oil on there like it is now and then stand them up here and cut them off, and then when I get ready to cut them to length and just finish the side, as opposed to cut up a bunch of strips and then try to put the oil on all those small individual pieces. So let's go ahead and here's the plan. Okay, so all of my posts and my beams are burned and then they're oiled. So there's a little bit of difference in the contrast between those and what the other boards, which were just a clear coat when they age. Now like this door, it can be a little dark at the beginning, but depending on what type of wood you use, like these posts right here, and you can kind of tell how things are aging and the different colors that you're going to get as the wood gets older. Alright, so as we step inside here, you can see that, like I said, the post and the beam are a different color. So if we lighten it up a little bit lighter than this, and I think that the contrast, because I do need some pieces of trim to go on the edges right here, all the way around in the corners, right here at the corners of my post, because what that will do, that will seal up this crack right here, and that will give me a nice finished edge. But that will help keep the definition of my post and beam, and that will cover up all of my cracks. So let's go ahead and get these things laid out, get them slightly burnt, and we'll start applying the oil to them. Well, let's let these dry, and if we're lucky this afternoon, we might be able to stack them on the sawmill and cut them up into strips, because it's a whole lot easier to stack all the strips up and do the edges and flip them over and do it that way. So let's let them dry and see how they turn out this afternoon. Well, I went to the dump to take off a bunch of cans and things like that, and I stacked these boards up over here. And if you look up there in the sky, I've got about an hour and a half of daylight left, and these boards are drying really well. So I think in the meantime, what I'm going to do is just let them dry for another hour and a half, and I'll start working on those tomorrow because I'm not in any big hurry. What I may do is take the four-wheeler and go up and get some posts, because I don't actually want to start going over the driveway yet, because once I start that, I need to go ahead and continue until I finish. That way I can use the driveway, and I don't want to tackle that today. So I may go ahead and take the four-wheeler. We'll run up there and we'll get some posts so that I can have them start peeling them, and that will be one of the projects, like I was saying, putting a fence up and kind of defining the area around the homestead here. It's been a day or two since we've been up here, right? Since I fell all these trees. Yeah, I got lots of trees up here. I need to get up here and get it all cleaned up. And there's where the posts are back there. I actually wanted to bring a road up through where the root cellar was to come up here and then move that storm shelter over here. But with the cost of everything, I don't know that I'll be able to do that. So I may just have to keep that whole. And what I could do right here, if I remove those two trees right there, and all this old dead wood that's just rotting, I could come up right through here with the tractor right at the edge of the yard, and I would still be able to get underneath the roof line up there with the top of the tractor, and I could go right up this old road, and I could bring my logs down or whatever I needed to do. So that may be the ticket. That way I don't have to spend any money that I don't really have, and I can still be able to accomplish, you know, what I set out to do. So let's run up here and get some of these posts and take them down there so that I can start removing the bark from them, and we can dig holes and get them set in there as we have time. Well, I've been digging through this pile, and I think what's happened, since all these leaves blew in here, whenever they get wet, they hold the moisture, because when it was just the logs stacked up here, or the posts, they were able to drain, but a lot of this is rotten. There may be a few cedars down here on the bottom. I did find one good one on the top right here, but I think what I'm going to do is just go ahead and get the chainsaw to cut some of these tops up, because a lot of those tops are fence post size, and what I can do, since I tarred the very bottom of them before I stuck them in the ground, that should last quite a while. I've got a top section right here that needs to be cut up as well for fence posts. That's about the right size. And I got that big tree laying down right there. I got this one laying down right here. Got that one laying down on top of it. Like I said down there at that outdoor kitchen, if I went ahead and cut those two trees down, I could actually get up in here fairly easy with the tractor coming around the carport. Well, friends, I got my good hat on this morning. I'm coming down here to check out these boards and see how they dried out the whole day. Oh yeah, they look really good, and they are almost just bone dry, so that's nice. When I got up this morning, I got a call from some family up there in North Carolina saying, hey, we've got some logs up here. If you want them, you can come get them. So I'm gonna drive up there and look and see, because I do have that big trailer I could take and haul at least possibly 6 if they were like 1,000 pounds. So if they're good logs, I wouldn't mind going up there and getting them. So let's run up there and check it out, and we may just end up going and getting them. Can you all see that right there? There's quite a few trees. Looks like there's gonna be quite a few logs too. Okay, there's a pine that was fell. That'd make a couple of good logs. That would make a couple of good logs right there. And then that one right there would make a good log. I tell you what, you got all kind of good sized trees up in here.
Yeah.
Now friends, you remember who that guy is right there? That is Jennifer's uncle. All right, this is the largest log, guys, right here. I'm just guessing at maybe it being 28 inches, maybe 26, I'm not sure. But it doesn't have too many limbs, so it's got a curve right down there in it, but there's a good 10-foot log right there. Well, Jennifer's other uncle has a tractor here. We were trying to determine whether it was big enough, grown up enough to where it could lift them logs on there. What do y'all think? Leave me some comments and let me know if you think that it'll lift them logs up there. Now, Mark.
It's a 2155 John Deere 92.
Yeah.
50 or 55 horsepower.
He told me to be careful what I say around this thing because it was real sensitive. So if I wanted them loaded in there, I need to be talking nice to this John Deere, right?
Now what started all of this mess in here was this one stump, okay, that used to have that tree attached to it. If you can see Randy's house down there, this tree was leaning in that direction right towards the center of the house at about 30 degrees. So what they did is they climbed the tree, hooked up a big rope, tied it to an excavator, and pulled in that direction as they cut it.
Which allowed them to be able to save the house in case that tree came down in a windstorm. But yeah, there's one more in here that's probably going to have to come down at some point.
Which is this one right here, because it is leaning in that direction, but in reference to the house, it would probably fall right in this area right here. You all know what that is, right? You want to stay away from that. That is poison. And here's the other end of it right there. You can almost, that's almost big enough to put on the sawmill by itself. All right, guys, I think we've got it figured out. I think we're going to hire the dump truck, and we're going to try to cut a path up through here where we can get maybe 10 or 12 thrown on there and get them hauled down to Tennessee. So y'all stay tuned for that. All right, guys, there we go. I think that's what the plan is going to be. So I think Randy is going to take some time and start cutting some of that up and cleaning it up so that we can get those logs pulled down off the hill. That way when the guy brings the dump truck up here, we can just load them in the dump truck. But the dump truck will be a lot safer than me trying to bring my trailer up here and trying to stop in one of these curves with maybe 7,000 or 8,000 pounds behind me. So that's the plan. We're heading back to Tennessee, so I'll see you when we get there. Well, we made it back to Tennessee, and I know that that was a little bit unexpected, but it's good to know if I can get 10 of those logs in the back of that dump truck, and it only cost me $200. That's $20 a log. And if I can get, you know, those are pretty good sized logs. If I could get, you know, a couple hundred board feet per log, you're looking at about 2,000 board feet of lumber for $200. Where are you going to buy that at a big box store? But I think these boards will work really well once I get them cut up, and I think they're going to look good because they've really stained out well. We didn't burn them too much. But friends, I think I'm going to go ahead and shut this video down here because this would end up being an hour long. I certainly do appreciate you stopping by. Be sure and stay tuned next week. We'll get all this cut up and start getting it put on the inside. So y'all take care, and we look forward to seeing you back up here at the cabin again next time.